Welcome back to part 2 of my interview with Ari Alexander from KPRC Channel 2 Houston as he talks to me about free agency targets and some of his experiences since he's been in Houston in 2019. Hope you enjoy.
Alvarez hits a high drive center field. Vierling's back. This game is turned upside down. There's the runner. Fly ball down the right field line. Tucker comes on. Kyle Tucker. This time they finish the job.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Astros, your daily Astros podcast. Here are your hosts, Eric the Man Heisman and Brett Htown Wheelhouse Chansey.
We are Locked On Houston Astros, and we're your daily Astros podcast. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Htown Wheelhouse. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. You can find the show at Locked On Astros on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Remember, we're your team every single day. I've got a special guest with me today, local sports anchor and dubbed by other local media as one of the hardest working men in Houston sports. Ari Alexander, welcome to the show.
I appreciate you guys having me. Thank you for the kind words.
So, Ari, let's talk about this. Let's talk about, I think a lot of people are like, okay, are the Rangers for real? And I think the trajectory of the Astros plays out in the Astros' favor. We do know this past week, and we'll kind of mention it. I know it's a little sore spot for you, but one of your favorite players on the planet, they just announced a day before it came out on Tuesday, he was going to the 60-day IL. Everybody's like, don't panic. It's retroactive. He's been out about 40 days, so he can come back toward the end of June. Tuesday, they announced he's going for Tommy John. That has playoff implications for the Rangers. Do you see the Astros at some point in June or July taking over the AL West, or do you think they'll be chasing the Rangers all regular season?
Because I cover the Astros and I see them more, I'm generally, I think, a little biased toward them and inclined to believe that they're going to, and from what I've seen the past however many years, that they will eventually overtake the Rangers. I think that Astros fans who are worried that the Rangers are finally good have a right to be worried for that. Their lineup has been simply one of the best in baseball. Their pitching staff is pitching to their abilities. These are not random guys, and I don't want to, disrespect like Bryce Elder. He's leading the league in ERA, or close to the league leading ERA, and that's not someone you'd expect, right? But Nathan Eovaldi going out and pitching into a 2.20 ERA, he can do that. He has the ability to do that. John Gray was a high first-round draft pick who was a guy throwing 100 miles an hour at Oklahoma when he was in college. If John Gray's pitching well, it's because John Gray has that ability. Andrew Heaney is hit and miss, but Andrew Heaney was, again, a first-round pick back in the day to the Marlins. I saw him in 2011 Cape Cod League when I was doing play-by-play for the Brewster Whitecaps. All the guys that they have on that pitching staff, Dane Dunning is an ex-top prospect. The guys that they're throwing out there, and Martin Perez, we know, is giving the Astros trouble. The guys they're throwing out there, they're just hitting their top level, and it's there. It's not, guys that are just coming out of nowhere and just randomly throwing up 6 innings of one-run ball. These are good pitchers who have been worse than they can be, and they're finally hitting the stride. Their offense is excellent. They have a bunch of good hitters who are finally hitting well. The Mitch Garbers, the Jonah Heims of the world, Adolis Garcia. They have a dangerous and deep lineup. They have the potential AL Rookie of the Year. I think it's going to come down to Young and to Hunter Brown. Those two guys are probably going to battle out for it, whether or not you like the pitcher, whether or not you like the position player. They're very good. The thing is that they haven't been here. And I think it's very tough for a team who has not consistently known what it's like to lead the division and have teams chasing you and have the target on your back to continue to win. This happened to the Mets last year, where they had this massive division lead, and then they played poorly for the last 2 months of the season, and the Braves chased them down. Well, the Braves are just coming off a World Series championship. The Braves are coming off almost every year where they're either winning the division or close, and they had all these people and all these players that know what it's like to be winning the division. They know what it's like to play playoff baseball, to play high leverage baseball. And the Mets, for the most part, didn't. And so I think that helps. I think that you have an Astros team in 2020, I think was really important because they had a horrible year. They go 29-31 and they lose the division to the A's and then just immediately turn it on in the playoffs because the A's had no idea how to play those high leverage innings. and you come in and you have that lineup of Springer and Correa and Bregman and Altuve, of all these guys who have played more playoff baseball than anyone else. And so they just don't get fazed by it. And so when you go into a playoff environment, when you have a team like 2021 is a good example. White Sox hadn't been to the playoffs or were very limited playoff appearances versus an Astros team who's running out a lineup of a bunch of guys who played just all this playoff baseball. There's a mental advantage there. And I think when you get to a point, maybe late in the season, if it is close in the division race between the Astros and the Rangers, the Astros, or the Rangers rather, have plenty of talent on the offensive side. They have good pitchers. They've cobbled together a solid enough bullpen. But from a mental standpoint, they haven't been here before. A lot of their players don't necessarily know what it's like to be chased, to be the target. And the Astros have 2/3 of their team just constantly used to that. And so I do think that they have an advantage on the mental side.
Yeah, definitely. So with that being said, in free agency, do you see the Astros going after a starting pitcher to kind of shift a little bit and maybe going after another bat? Or do you think if this offense gets going enough that they just maybe look for another arm? Because we don't know if McCullers is going to come back. Urquidy's supposed to come back at the All-Star break. Luis Garcia is not going to be here till 2024. So do you think that they're eyeing, that they're looking at the starting pitching? Are there any names that you think that are out there that are likely? I mean, what's the pulse right now?
Are you talking about free agency after the season or trade deadline?
No. Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah. Trade deadline this year going into the playoffs 2023.
I think they maybe can go get a bat, but I don't think that's necessarily a priority. I think definitely go get an arm. You need an extra starting pitcher. And last year they had the healthiest starting pitcher season of all time. And this year it's total opposite because that's baseball. And you need someone. I think Urquidy has had enough little injuries here and there that maybe you are worried about whether or not he's available for the postseason. You're definitely worried about whether or not Lance McCullers Jr. is available for the postseason. And then as good as JP France or Brandon Bielak have been filling in, and they have been excellent given their role of being, the 7th and 8th guys in the organizational depth for starting pitchers, I don't want to see those guys throwing a single inning in the playoffs. And so you do need to go get someone. Dylan Cease is going to be probably too expensive. I think the White Sox are going to be sellers. Lucas Giolito is a name that I would look at. He hasn't been great this year.
Yeah, I think they can fix him.
Recently just got hurt, so that maybe puts an issue. But I'm trying to look through, the names, and I keep coming back to a guy like a Giolito who hasn't been quite that good. And I know 2019 they went and got Aaron Sanchez, and then he had the no-hitter, and then gets there or whatever, and then gets hurt. But there aren't a lot. And so I'm trying to look through this list here of teams that aren't good who are willing to give up a guy, and it just keeps coming back to a guy like a Giolito. There just aren't. Jordan Montgomery.
Yeah, I think it's. I think Montgomery. Yeah, I think Montgomery is probably a name that's out there, but I would love to get a Giolito because I really think our pitching staff could really do. I mean, the list is long and distinguished of who they've been able to fix, who they've been able to help bring in here and become more effective. Because Giolito, when he's on, when he's got his stuff together, I think he's one of the better arms in the major leagues. So, we can, I would love to have you on again sometime to explore those things. But before we go, I want to see, are there any memorable moments for you these last few years? Maybe a cool story you can share, being possibly on the field, after the World Series, interviewing players, things like that. What are some things, some hallmark moments for you since you've been with KPRC and covering the Astros specifically? Today's episode is brought to you by GameTime. GameTime is an easy-to-use ticket app. That's right. Just 2 clicks and you are there. No need to plan in advance or months in advance. You can get the tickets the day of the game, the day of the play, the day of the comedy show. They have the lowest prices guaranteed. And if you find the same section and same seat row that your seat was purchased on, and let's start over. Today's episode is brought to you by GameTime. GameTime is the easiest ticket app. It gives you the best prices out there on the internet. Let me tell you, it's very simple. You don't have to plan ahead. You don't have to make advanced plans. You can literally go walk up to the stadium the day of the game, walk up to the theater the day of the event and buy your tickets. What's cool is if you use a promo code Locked on MLB, you get $20 off your first purchase. I've actually done this at an Astros game myself. I walked up, didn't really have a ticket, and so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna use my GameTime app. I found a seat in section 109, row 12 for like $48. Now, I don't know if you'll find $48 row 12 every single game, but I can promise you there'll be the lowest prices guaranteed. If you go to another website, you find the same row and same section at a cheaper price, they will refund you 110% the difference. So that way you have more money in your pocket. GameTime is an easy to use app, and we prefer that you go to that and don't go anywhere else. Again, 2 clicks and you're there. It's in the palm of your hand. You always have your phone with you, and it uploads it to your MLB ticket app right there. So check out GameTime today, and thank you for supporting our sponsors. And make sure if you're not able to watch the game, you can listen to the game. The Astros play the Guardians Sunday night at 6:07 p.m. Central Standard Time. Check every pitch of the Astros hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search Astros.
I think it's less moments and just the general idea of being able to build relationships with some of these players, which is something that I kind of think is a little easier in baseball than it is in other sports, because you're just kind of there so long and like on the field and batting practice. And these are just like hours, and the guys have downtime. And so basketball is a little different because these guys will come out and they're locked in and they're working on their pregame routine, and you can chat with them for a couple minutes, and then they're off doing treatment or whatever. And then game time. Right. And then NFL, there is none of that. Like, yeah, you're in the locker room a little bit here and there, but there's kind of less downtime. And then your relationships a lot of the time are built in the off season, where if these guys trainers, you out do, feature stories on them. But for baseball, it's great because there's just like clubhouse opens at 3 for a 7:00 game. Dusty talks at 4, but between 3 and 6, when we get kicked out of the field, or 6:30, you guys are just like kind of hanging out for the most part. Yeah. They do their extra infield work, they hit, but there's a lot of opportunity to just like chat about whatever. And so I use Ryan Stanek as a good example of a guy that I have a good relationship with, who will just talk about whatever. And it's fun to just, sometimes we'll talk baseball. Sometimes we'll talk about like swords or whatever. I think we got onto like pirate swords one day, just randomly.
That sounds like Stanek.
Yeah. And then just, restaurants or, good to see, the younger guys like Corey Julks, right? So we were talking about MLB The Show the other day, and, what version you play, and just, what guy looks like themselves, or have a good relationship with Jeremy Pena. And it's just like, hey, do you think you look like you in this game? And I talked to Pena a little bit about that, and he's like, it's getting better. It's still not amazing. It's better than years past, just little things like that. And so you get to find out these guys' personalities and just things that they like off the field. And you get to know, for a lot of it, that they're normal people who like the same stuff that anyone else likes. They just happen to be freakishly good at a sport. And so it's the same thing that applies to NFL players and NBA players, probably even more so to baseball, because off the field, they don't necessarily stand out at a look wise, right? Like a 6'9" NBA player is always going to be 6'9", or an NFL player is going to,
Right.
Offensive lineman is huge. Whereas if you didn't know Alex Bregman is a pro athlete, he could walk around any mall or anywhere, any grocery store, and he's a guy. He's a 5'11", pretty well built because he's a pro athlete. He's just like a guy. And so I think
Right.
that kind of helps, where, for baseball too, these guys golf and fish and hunt, and you find out that there's regular people with regular interests, and for the most part, regular problems that they might be a little easier for them to solve because they make lots of money, but they deal with the same kind of stuff that we all do. And so I think just building relationships and knowing that these guys just like a lot of the same stuff and eat at the same restaurants. And so it's fun getting to know these players. And then Dusty too, like Dusty's the most interesting human being on earth. I've wanted to do something where you do like 6 degrees of Dusty Baker, because you bring up anyone. The other day, I think Chandler tweeted this out about Tina Turner. We were talking about baseball, and there's like a lull, and it's like, oh yeah, Tina Turner passed away recently. Hey, Dusty, do you know, anytime something happens, hey, Dusty, do you know Jim Brown? Yep. Hey, Dusty, do you know Tina Turner? Oh, I almost bought her house, but she had too much velvet in her house. Like, One day I was telling him about, I speak Russian fluently, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I knew lots of Russians back in New York. We used to go to this secret club back when I was hanging out with John F. Kennedy Jr." Like, what? Yeah. So, and he'll just like offhand, like you could ask him, "Hey, Dusty, do you know Genghis Khan from 800 years ago?" "Oh yeah, I met his ancestor. Like I was in Mongolia," and like he's the most interesting person I've ever met in sports, and I've met like Clyde Frazier, and I'm trying to think who else. Like I talked to Reggie Jackson quite a bit, and Reggie's super interesting, but like Dusty is insane.
Yeah. So we have this little segment. I'll show you this little sound bite we have, because we have a little segment on our show that we do.
Thoughts by Dusty.
Because it seems like, I mean, he is radio gold. He is, he'll say something after a game. Well, if you score more runs than them, you're going to beat them. But if you don't, you're going to lose. Like,
yeah.
He's so matter of fact. But I even found out that there's a guy that basically he took under his wing. He considers Dusty, basically his father figure. And Dusty, he wrote Dusty as a kid. And he told him he needed a mentor. He needed someone to look up to, because he didn't have a father. And Dusty helped put him through college. Dusty helped, I think he helped him with his first vehicle. And he follows Dusty everywhere. I think he's at the Astros games a lot. I don't know the guy's name. I think the guy's in his 30s now. But Dusty took him under his wing as a young kid. And he took it upon himself to be this kid's mentor. And that's what kind of person Dusty is. He just... I mean, it's legendary enough that he was on deck when Hank Aaron hit the home run in Atlanta that Milo Hamilton happened to call. Actually, my grandfather was at that game in Atlanta. I have a wooden bat in my closet, a little, the mini bats you get from the gift shop, and it has burned in it Atlanta Braves. So it's just really, really cool to have something like that. Thank you for sharing that, man. I definitely we could do a whole podcast. Ari, just like, we could call it Chronicles of Ari, and just share these great stories.
Yeah.
But that's awesome. And that's something you don't think about. Yeah. Bird dogs make you look good. Bird dogs stretch khaki shorts are designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg, giving you a truly sculpted look. They'll say, "Hey, you must not have skipped leg day." Why? Because you have bird dogs on. Bird dogs fix the issue by inventing cloud knit fabric that looks like khaki but stretches the way to get you to a slimmer fit without sacrificing the movement. Bird Dogs uses an anti-stink sweat wicking fabric that keeps you cool, dry all day long. I love wearing Bird Dogs because Bird Dogs are where it is at. I mean, definitely one of the most comfortable shorts out there. They also will throw in a free gift right now. If you use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB, they'll send you a Yeti style tumbler from Bird Dogs to you for free. I promise you, this is a really good deal. I mean, whether you want the hot drink or the cold drink on the road, the Bird Dog Yeti mug will get you there, along with going to your event looking top notch like nobody's business has ever seen you. So go to birddogs.com/LockedOnMLB and enter the promo code LockedOnMLB to get your free Yeti style tumbler. You won't want to take your Bird Dogs off. Trust us. And make sure, if you're not able to watch the game, you can listen to the game. The Astros play the Guardians Sunday night at 6:07 p.m. Central Standard Time. Check every pitch of the Astros hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search Astros. A lot of those MLB The Show, you're right. They really don't look like the guy as much as they try to get it.
Hensley looks really good, so his looks just like him. Matajevics is terrible. Some of the bigger name players like Bregman, Fromber, those guys, those are really, they're good. They look like them. Pena's is not good. Pena's like being nice about it, and he's just like, yeah, it's getting better, but it doesn't look like him. But yeah, I mean, the game I think does a great job on your very well-known players for the most part.
Right.
The Aaron Judges of the world, Shohei, obviously, the cover guys, right? But then when you get to, oddly, again, David Hensley, oddly enough, really good, face scan, looks just like him. But then for a lot of these guys, it's not. And you go through Astros like Corey Julks is just nothing even close to what he looks like. But then like Stanix is oddly pretty good, like looks just like him. Frommer's is excellent. Yeah. So that was one because I just got a PS5 over Christmas. So I just got MLB The Show for the first time. I haven't played a baseball game in years. And so now I'm just starting to notice these things of like, hey, I know these guys personally. This looks nothing like this guy, when you look at the game.
That's great. Man, this has been a great conversation. I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule and sitting down with me. We're going to be airing this over the weekend on Saturday. So look, if you guys do not watch local news in Houston, go over to KPRC, check out Ari's stuff. You even do a Sports Sunday show, correct?
Yep, 10:30 on Sundays on KPRC. We have a KPRC2 Plus app that you can download on your phone that's free, that you can stream stuff. We have extra streaming shows, usually during the playoffs, World Series, that'll go right before the game. We did one I was at the NFL draft a little while ago. We did a little features on this. We have this local jeweler who does all the huge chains for the players of the draft.
Cool.
Frost & Co. did a sit-down interview with Texas star running back Bijan Robinson. So we'll do little things like that here and there. But for the most part, 10:30 Sports Sunday, we get to explore, with the 30 minutes longer topics than we would on a 2-3 minutes on the news every night. So this week we just talked about Jeremy's Pena's Pals, where he invited some Uvalde survivors, and he's doing really good stuff with the community every Friday home game. And Bregman has Bregman Cares. I know Reagan and his wife will be out at there's a dodgeball tournament coming up where they'll raise some money for charity. And so a lot of the times these guys will go out and they go out and do good work for the community. You'll see Jordan and Altuve and Pena and Bregman and all these guys out in the community doing good work. Lance McCullers is another guy that does quite a bit of that. And so, you get to know these guys that they care about the community. They care about being good for the fans. And, sometimes people take that for granted, and I yell at the TV plenty at the Mets. But, these guys are always trying, and they're not above criticism. It's okay to criticize their game and break down why this guy's not doing well or doing better or whatever. But, sometimes you do got to take a step back and go, hey, these are real people that are trying to live their dream, and baseball's hard and they're working at it. And if they don't succeed, then they don't succeed. But they are people that are trying to make the best of their living.
No, yeah, definitely. Once again, I appreciate you joining the show. Thank you so much for tuning in to Locked on Astros. Ari, thank you for taking the time out. This has been a great bonus edition of Locked on Astros. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check us out on Apple, Google, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Follow Ari on Twitter. I'm sure interact with me. See you at a game, say hi. Get a picture with them. Say, I saw you on Locked on Astros. Now you're not just famous, you're infamous. That's right. The hardest working man in Houston sports, Ari Alexander. I'm Htown Wheelhouse with Locked on Astros. Remember, we're your team every day. Go Stros.